Thank you very much for commencing the recording. That's fantastic. And good morning to those who have just joined with us as well. I'd firstly like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and honour their elders past, present and future. This morning, of course, we are going to hear all about the Central Mall project, and we're also going to be asking you, our community members, for feedback. But I'll just be running through some house rules before we commence. There'll be a quick project overview and an icebreaker activity, a chance for you to trial some of the software that we're using. There's an introduction from Place Lab, and then we'll actually be handing over to our Place Lab expert, Walter Vanderloo, who will run us through the work that has been done so far. And at that point, we'll go of activities. So you guys will actually all be doing some work today because we really need your feedback in relation to the draft. And that'll be the end of the session. So just those house rules that I was mentioning, all comments and ideas are welcome today. There's no such thing as a crazy idea or a comment that you can't make. But we do ask you to ensure that you're respectful of others. So when making those comments, please ensure that they are appropriate. And I must say, we have to run through these, but I've never had an issue at one of the sessions that I've ran for the City of Kalamunda. Our community are amazing in that regard. Please do ensure that only one person speaks at a time. So we're going to use some software, but of course there is also the opportunity to actually verbalise any questions that you've got or comments that you'd like to make when we get to certain points. And so we just ask, if you can just speak one person at a time. And if you need to, or if you think you've got something to say and you just want me to kind of introduce you in so you're not cutting anyone off, you might notice in the top right hand corner, there's next to your chat function, there's a little hand that's up. If you click on that, it'll actually let me know that that you'd like to make a comment or you'd like the floor for a moment. So please do feel free to use that function if you need to. Please do not use any inappropriate language. So you'll be aware, as I've said, that this is being recorded and we just need to show respect, but also use language that's appropriate. We just ask, if you don't mind, if you can keep your mic on mute when you're not speaking to avoid any feedback or any additional noise. We've ran a few of these sessions now and they've actually been a load of fun. The community has really enjoyed them, but it was quite funny. We had a lady on one of my earlier calls who had a gorgeous bird in the backyard, but it was so noisy, it was almost overtaking what we were saying. So if you can mute your mic, and I can see you've all done that for me for the moment, I really do appreciate that one. So I am now going to play a really quick video and then I'm going to hand over to you, Walter, to run us through who Place Lab are.
Is there meant to be audio with this video?
Alrighty. Now I did just hear from Andrew that the background music wasn't working there, which is interesting, but it is just music. So there was no kind of audio that you missed per se, but we'll have a look at that because that's quite interesting. Okay, Walter, if it's okay, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up. Good, excellent, excellent. So yes, as Nick said, we're going to give you a bit of an overview of what this project's all about, what the opportunities and some of what we're proposing for the actual outcomes there, and then have some exercises to actually explore your thoughts on how we're progressing with it. So just to quickly give background to why this is here in terms of the project we're doing. It's one of the major projects to revitalise Kalamunda Town Centre, which really followed on from the activity centre plan, which we'll explain a little bit more in another slide. And the point of this is really to help transform the mall to become a precinct that's more appreciated by more people and becomes a bit of a focus, and that with that opportunity for more outcomes there. So that activity centre plan in 2018, there was quite a comprehensive engagement process done on behalf of the town and by the town with the community, and that really helped to understand why the town needed to evolve and what the opportunities were there, and that was captured in that activity plan. That's a vision that obviously takes a while to implement, and requires a lot of buy-in from the council to actually produce various components of that plan over the years. So as it says there, on the 24th of March of that year, that plan was endorsed, and the city's been busy since then determining what should be the first priorities. So it was agreed that this particular part of town, the mall, would be the first cab off the rank to help start that catalyst for transformation. And this plan is really all about improving the outcomes for people who use that space and to get more people there. So there's a series of elements there that will allow more alfresco dining, improving shade and amenity, opening up the mall to traffic, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail as we get into the actual plan itself, and providing opportunities for people to get there and use the space easier. So now just quickly introduce Place Laboratory. So we were engaged by the city to take on that work, and we've got a team of engineers supporting us as well, cost people, irrigation design, all those sorts of people that we need to help design the mall so it can be built. But from our perspective, and a couple of these images will show the sort of passion we have really is about creating great places for people. So thinking about all the different ways that people can benefit from coming to places that are out in the public realm, that benefits the community, but also what's really important is making sure that the fundamentals of a town are working, so that the economies are working, that the businesses are thriving and benefiting from that extra footfall from people being here and doing these things. So at South Perth, a transformation there to help with tourism, to connect the city to the zoo, and get people to stay and linger in South Perth as part of that experience. Another example here at a much smaller scale, which is converting a street into a bit of a park for town of Vincent. Mary Street's the project, and once again you can see how we can change the way people perceive spaces and relate to the way the vehicles use roads, that streets become places rather than just a means of getting from A to B. Down in Rockingham, a recent project of ours as well, where not only was the foreshore transformed and made just a really fun place, but also the railway street, which is the perpendicular street to the foreshore, also reactivated and improved the way people get to it and stay in it, and benefit from all the opportunities that can happen there for events or al fresco or whatever it is that people can enjoy those spaces. And then lastly, just a picture of a park project that we've done for Department of Communities as a temporary installation to activate a part of Bentley where the old Brownlee Towers were, utilising existing materials and repurposing and creating just really fun places. And what you see with all these projects is that what's important is finding something that's meaningful and unique for what you have. And it's not about a cookie cutter approach where you just throw in all the usual elements and ingredients and hope that you've got a great outcome. You really need to have a meaningful place that's based in the narrative of your town, of what your stories are and what the place means to you. So that's what Place Lab does and what we're really excited to be part of here. And I also point out that our team's working really closely with the staff at City of Kalamunda, and they're driving this as well and quite passionate about seeing some great outcomes for that Central Mall area. So let's talk a bit about the project now and what's been guiding it and how we've taken from the activity centre plan and explored everything that was in that to actually bring forward what this means for the Central Mall, because there was a very early concept done in the activity centre plan. It touched on the big moves in terms of access and what its role it has in the town, but now we need to really dive in a bit more into what it's doing. So we look carefully at what it means to be Kalamunda and what's important to community, and these themes were developed on the basis of that. So we'll go into each of those now and talk about each of those themes. Oh, sorry, Nick, I've forgotten if the themes are coming later again, but maybe not. So just talking to each of those then, that idea of living in the forest, that the town is surrounded by the forest, you're up on the escarpment overlooking the green, and the access to it is so strong, and the way that canopy plays a role in that, and that sense of being amongst the trees. And we've still got some brilliant native trees in around the CADS building. We think more of that feeling would be great for this area. The second one is about connected communities. Some fantastic things happen there already with the markets and people coming to there to celebrate and do things. And it's more about trying to ensure we get more of that. And it's about looking for the everyday connections, not just big events or special things that might happen once a week or once a month. It's about connecting communities every day, all day. So we wanted to explore that some more. And the last theme is this idea of tracks and trails. So we want to think about the mall as being one place in a series of places around the town. The activity centre plan identifies different precincts that perform different roles. And it's important that we get people out of cars, hanging around longer and exploring Kalamunda and actually benefiting from that, the commercial activity, the social activity, all those things. So journeys through the mall as part of broader travelling in the town, but also then really recognising that the Bibbulmun track and its role in the identity of the town is really important. The tracks and trails through the bushland are a real strong character definer. So ways that we've explored how that can be expressed in the Central Mall project are captured in these sort of 4 images here. So the first one is this idea about enjoying community events and enjoying a variety of gathering spaces. So what's important there is that we find ways to create different spaces for different purposes and provide also flexibility so that these spaces can evolve over time depending on the changing needs of the community. But importantly, really, provide that breathing space for that to occur. The second one there is a sense of enclosure and reveal. So this is about the benefits that you get from actually being within an open room, and that idea of being in the forest is very much that feeling of being in an open room. So as you walk through the mall, you'll get more of a sense of green enclosure, shade, comfort, but also that fantastic big sky that's out there, so that when you come to an open area, you can see the sky, see the stars, and, and enjoy the big open natural context that Kalamunda sits in. The third one, encouraging people to look up. So we felt that there was a real opportunity to take advantage of what's up in the air to help define this space a bit more. And we'll show you later about ways that we've looked at lighting and structures to help work with green canopy to achieve that. And then the converse to that is looking at how the ground plane and different elements within the space will help tell stories. So that idea of the trails, the tracks, the story of discovery, and one example that one of the shop owners told us about the other week was these fairy doors that are appearing at some of the shops, and kids go and look for them and find where these fairy doors are. And there's real opportunity to have those layers of experience wrapped into the design of the space. Okay, so we're now going to talk about the 11 outcomes that we believe are going to help this project be successful. So it's the way we measure what we're doing, and as we're designing, we keep looking back to these to go, well, are we doing this? Is this thing that we're proposing, the money that's being spent, actually going to achieve these sorts of things? And we will have questions for you later on in our activity to actually ask you whether you feel what we've presented is helping to achieve these outcomes, and also whether you feel we've actually got the right outcomes. So there's 6 on this slide and then 5 on the next, and I'll just quickly go through those. So the outcomes we're looking to do are to increase planting and tree canopy. So at the moment, in the mall itself, there's really just the deciduous trees through there, a few climbers growing on some climbing frames, and really not a very green, soft environment. Potentially quite hot, quite sparse, and we really feel that getting that extra canopy in is really helping to not just improve the amenity for people. It's providing spaces for wildlife to come in and to people to experience the essence of Kalamunda a bit more. So we're looking to do that while taking advantage of the existing trees that are there. We know how hard it is to grow trees in some places here where there's rock underground, and so we don't want to start from scratch and have to wait another 20 years for good trees, but we want to increase the opportunity. I've talked a bit about the opportunities for social gatherings. So this idea of whether it's just 1 or 2 people getting together or larger groups, community gatherings, all those different ways that people come together, we want to ensure that we support that. Complementing the character and identity of Kalamunda, we've talked about those themes that do that, but we want this design to actually then reinforce that. Improving safety. Safety and perception of safety are always really important in every public realm project. We're not necessarily saying that the mall's a crime-ridden place, and but it's certainly, there's always something you've got to keep in mind. How do you make people feel more comfortable to be here? And it doesn't matter what time of day or night, and it doesn't matter who you are. The next one, supporting community events. Now, we're obviously mindful of things like the markets are incredibly popular and make such a difference for the not just the community, but the shops that are along the mall. And our design seeks to ensure that we accommodate that moving forward, that other opportunities for events can occur. Pedestrian focus while allowing vehicle access. Once again, I'll talk to that a bit more when we show the slides, but this is about finding the best of both worlds in terms of what a pedestrianised environment offers versus what introducing vehicles through an environment offers. So what a traditional main street does compared to a mall. So the last 5, creating an improved welcoming atmosphere. So that speaks for itself. This is all about positivity, enjoyment, all those sorts of things. Greater use through more times a day and through times of the year. So it is a bit limited in use at times. It's quite very quiet at times, and it really needs to benefit from that extra footfall at different times. Attracting a diverse range of visitors is obviously important. The more people who feel like this place meets their needs, then obviously that we're going to get more visitation and the benefits that come from that. The unique stories touches on, again, building on that the character of Kalamunda, but also, you know, getting more meaning to that and actually telling something that people are interested in and will come back and see more and experience more as they revisit. And then the last one, a very important one, if there's no business activity in the town, then that's not good for anyone. So being able to support that business activity is really critical. And the city's been working very closely with the business owners, the shopping centre, management, all those people to ensure that we're all, you know, heading towards the right outcomes there. Okay, so we're now going to actually start showing you things about the project, and you can start absorbing what all those aims mean and what it could be. So we thought we'd start with the end in mind. So we've got here three renders that I'll talk through a little bit, talk about some of the key elements that transform them all, and help you understand what we're trying to achieve here. So this is a view
Walter.
looking. Yes.
Sorry, can I get you just to jump back to the start of that sentence? I'm not sure about how everyone else went, but I just noticed that your we lost your audio for a second.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So there might have been a bit of a delay in the connection.
Sure. Okay. So I was just saying that what we're going to show you here is beginning with the end in mind. So actually showing you a few perspectives of our concept design, which help to explain some of the key changes that are going to help transform them all, and just talk a bit about what are those factors that make that difference. And then after that, I'll show you the plans and go into a bit of detail about the plans, and then show you some more images of other projects that kind of capture the essence of the sort of the built outcomes that we're looking to achieve here. So this first perspective is of the more from the Mead Street end as you've just come past the car park, and on the left you've got the first set of shops on the left there with the awning. We don't have that as a, you know, an image of those shops. We're just showing the bulk and form of that single level development, and we're looking down towards Haynes there. So first thing you'll see there is a lot more trees, a lot more greenery, opportunity for planting beds to soften the space, cool the space, provide more inviting spaces for people to hang out. So you can see some seating there. That could be al fresco associated with restaurants in those shops, or just public places for people to utilise as well. We'd love to see, you know, some small critters coming into the garden beds here and people seeing nature a lot more. The other main thing you see here is that there's no obvious road. You're not seeing curbs, you're not seeing asphalt, you're not creating a distinct differentiation between pedestrian environments and the vehicle environments. And this is one of the critical things with shared spaces, that you look to create a different relationship between those who are driving and those who are not, so that there's a sense of care and consideration between all users. And we use a range of factors to show this. So I'll just go to the next slide and show this from a different perspective. So this is looking actually from the Mead Street intersection. So if you imagine, we've just come back about 50 metres further away from the traditional entry to the mall. and rather than, if you can visualize what you would see there normally at the moment, that's just a sea of asphalt. Leads off to the loading dock and some parking, and it's saying to people that this is a car-dominated environment. It's not encouraging people from this part of town, from the Aldi or from the shops up here, to want to walk through here to come in and use this space. Whereas with our proposal, it's all about letting people know that if you're going to drive in here, you're now entering a totally unique, different environment. And this has been proven throughout the world, in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, very much that it can be successfully done. So if we just go to the next slide as well. The third visualization seems to have dropped off. Okay. Do you mind if I share my screen and just pull that up, Nick?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, sorry for that glitch, guys. So we'll just go to here, and then I'll pull up this view here. Just zoom in a bit here. Okay, so let me know if you can't see this, but hopefully you can all see that now. So this view here is actually looking from the corner of the vault, looking up the mall towards, so CADS is just on the right, just off screen, the back of the CADS building, and the entry to the mall car park is just there on the left. So once again, you can see the idea is to tell vehicle drivers that they're entering a different space, and we do that through a series of means. So one of the ways, and we're looking at a one-way road here, so we're not creating too much conflict and too many vehicle movements. And what we're looking at here is people that pass through here are coming to here as a destination. So we've got limited parking bays, so short-term bays that they can use throughout the day. When the markets are on, the area would be closed off to vehicle traffic or other special events. So people can come here to get to their needs in a short-term way. We look to change the direction of travel. So as people go along here, they don't see a gun barrel, straight road, a straight strip that they can race down. It's all about weaving through the space. And then we use things like planting and street furniture to help intuitively differentiate where the vehicle needs to go, so that it can't just suddenly end up in the wrong place and causing havoc. So, and in addition to that, what we do is the paving, which we'll be addressing as we progress the design, helps to define that a bit more as well. And we deal with things like disabled access, visually impaired people, making sure that there's safe travel zones for pedestrians where they need to be, and safe crossing points where they need to be. But generally speaking, it's an encouragement to have people be able to wander around and to have those sight lines that you can see where vehicles are, and the drivers and the pedestrians are keeping an eye out for each other. We find that these sort of environments, so if you imagine a normal street where you've got your 40 kilometres an hour speed limit, we find these sort of streets tend to have an actual speed of between 10 and 20 kilometres per hour. So it's significantly reduced speed environment. So I'll leave that now and we'll go to the plans. If you can reshare your screen, Nick, that'd be great. Now I've made a boo-boo here, haven't I? This plan is a bit small on screen for you in Menti through through Teams, so I do apologise. I'm now actually going to show the plans on our screen here. Once again, please tell me if you can't see that. I'll make it as big as possible. Okay. So this is the plan in total. So some of the key things to see on here, and you'll be able to see my mouse, my little hand moving around here, is that it's all the way from Haynes Street to Mead Street. This isn't about where the mall is currently, and as you go around Nesta Bray Lane, you've got a road environment, then a mall environment, then a car park environment. This is about a whole place, and that changes, you know, everything in terms of the perceptions of access and welcoming people into the space. So at either end, we're looking at creating a sort of an entry experience that utilizes catenary lighting and structures, treatments on the ground plane. These are indicative at the moment, showing how we could have some big graphics on the ground, and planting as well to soften up and tell people they're coming into a different zone. The dark green trees you can see here are all the existing ones. So what we've done is pretty much retained every existing tree and worked with that, because they do contribute to the space. They create a sense of enclosure. Their deciduous nature is interesting as well. So in winter you get that sun coming in, and in summer we get the shade, and it does you know, contribute to that sort of European heritage, that landscape that is quite common in Kalamunda as well, where the deciduous tree is quite a popular tree to occur. So all those trees you can see have been retained. Then what we're showing there with the smaller green circles that are a bit lighter green are all the new trees. And that's sort of showing them, you know, maybe after a year or two. But you could imagine the canopy on these are all going to get substantial as well. And ultimately, if you can imagine their canopy similar in size to the dark green ones, how much that will make a difference to providing shade and comfort to the street and greening it. And what we're looking at is celebrating a lot of local natives where possible to achieve that look and feel that's unique to Kalamunda. Some of the other features here is the way we create different spaces. So you notice that one end is quite different to the middle, which is quite different to the other end. And that was done on purpose to create some diversity. Different locations relating to what's adjacent them creates different opportunities. And we want to ensure that we create that variety and diversity. I'll talk a bit more about each of those spaces when we zoom into the map a little bit more. The other main thing I want to talk about here is how that roadway is defined. And I will go to the next slide on that just to give you a sense of those vehicle movements and how they work. So if we look at this slide here, we can see the movements coming in, vehicle movements coming in. We've got 4 short-term parking bays provided for at this end. We've kept this area free of parking purely because of that being the core area and the opportunity to have the most diverse activities. So we want to keep space available for small events so that when the road is open, that things can still happen off to the side. There might be opportunity for a pop-up business to be here, or food truck, or those sorts of things. So we want to create that space, a breathing space around this entry area to the shopping centre, to the other park around the CADs, and where the core of the market activity occurs and then spreads out. So we've kept that free of parking through here. And then some more parking at the other end, including a disabled bay. So we've got better access for people. We're resolving some of the level challenges here to improve the level transitions from the mall into around the CADs area, changing the stairs and creating zones here that are a bit more accessible. The other thing you can see is how the arrows change direction. So this is really important, this idea of every 40 or 50 metres, getting the vehicle to change direction, because that changes their perception of the overall space and how they navigate it. And that inherently results in them slowing down, looking out for what's happening, creating a safe space. We have parallel parking instead of 90-degree parking because reversing movements in a pedestrian environment is just not safe. It's not appropriate to even have 45-degree parking. It creates conflicts people are looking in their rear vision mirrors and having to make those manoeuvres. So we look to have parallel parking as the safest means of introducing parking in these environments. At the far end, at Mead Street, there is certainly some functional challenges here. At this point in time, we maintain access to this site here because there's a car park entry to the rear, to the underside, to the basement. We need to be mindful that service deliveries are still required to the shopping centre, and there are some parking bays in this area as well. So we do actually have a two-way system in play here, coming from Mead Street, turning in, giving way to traffic as it flows through here, and then coming in, being able to reverse in or access the car park and then coming back out. Really, the amount of vehicle movements here is minimal. It's not a huge amount of turnover, and we don't see this as being a busy street environment. And so once again, we see that the ownership of the space will be for the pedestrian. And you know, if in terms of deliveries, if you imagine, say, the Hay Street Mall, the Murray Street Mall, those deliveries happen right now. You know, when the trucks come in, they know what they have to do. We'll be encouraging them to occur outside of the normal business hours, but they certainly can be managed in you know, the operational requirements to deal with that. So let's have a look in a bit more detail at some of the interesting bits in here. Okay, so looking at the northern end, we, as I said, off Haynes Street, we're looking to improve pedestrian connectivity so the city is exploring also the redevelopment of Haynes Street in the future as part of implementing the activity centre plan. So we're looking to preempt that, understand how pedestrians might cross more safely in the future here, and come to a bit more of a spacious landing pad. And in here, you know, create structures and exciting and interesting elements that get people in here. So at daytime they look great, but also at nighttime, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a sec as well. So in here, as mentioned, we've got the car parking, we've got space to have our fresco along the vault. We're talking to them about that. And then we've got, as I said, flexible spaces here. What we've done is create terraces to enable to create flatter areas that people can use for different uses, whether it's al fresco or other uses. Those level changes then create those seating opportunities, informal ways of people to linger in the space longer. We've introduced a sun lawn into the space, which has a really lovely aspect, a sloped lawn that will, you know, provide a bit of space once again for people to linger. And we're exploring with the City of Kalamunda to actually have loose furniture, so people could have bean bags here and sit out here and spend a bit of time. Those sorts of things can occur there. We address the challenges, as I mentioned, with the level changes through here, and just get people interacting and getting around the CADs a lot freer, and creating opportunities here with the changing of the way the stairs currently work here and the garden beds work here to actually make it just more friendly, and more people can hang out in these spaces. These are the canopies that I've mentioned that they will help to enclose the space, create an interesting visual element. Our lighting will be integrated with these. So here you can see these pole top lights are the white circles going along the street, which we see as an opportunity to be able to switch out decorations, or say at Christmas time you could have ornaments hanging off those. They can be quite flexible in their use, and then in combination with the catenary lighting that we're showing over here, we're introducing some really quite exciting lighting into these canopies, and these canopies will have dynamic elements in them. So they'll actually move around in the wind and capture light from the sun during the daytime and change the shadows on the ground. But in the evening, the speckled starlights that we're going to incorporate into these structures will create a real interesting sparkle in these spaces and just create these landmarks that people attract, help define the space and just create a really interesting experience. There's opportunity for us to incorporate public art into these treatments as well, and we're developing those briefs with the city at the moment. So if we now look at the southern end up at Mead Street, so once again, starting at the street, we're looking to coordinate the verges a lot better here to create a bit more space for pedestrians. Once again, look to create safe pedestrian crossing points in terms of refuges in the islands and lining those up with pram ramps. But then when you come into the space, and it's something I didn't mention earlier, is that all of this is flush treatment. So there's no step downs. You're telling the vehicle as you come up here, you're bumping up into this environment, and then everything is flush. So even though we show these white dashed lines just to indicate the path of travel for the vehicles, we'll be using paving patterns and to address that and to deal with that, and then the drainage as well with the flush treatments is all integrated into the design. This is very much wanting to transform this space from a car park space into a garden space. So if you imagine this is the bush garden, we're taking cues from the start of the Bibbulmun track, that feeling of logs and crunchy gravel and natural environment, really selling that. And that works well with the existing large native trees that are here as well. So trying to stop the space from bleeding out at the moment. So at the moment with the car park, this area here is actually part of the shopping centre. We're working with them to how to improve that a bit, but we're using the landscape to help define the edges of this space better. This vacant development at the moment is not really contributing much. We hope that this transformation will help get them on board to then activate that edge and be part of this development. But if that doesn't happen in the short term, we're looking to create a nice edge along here with gardens and potentially a backdrop that could help sell the space and the activities. It could incorporate public art, all those things. So we're getting a lot of enclosure, a garden feeling, slow vehicles down, and provide opportunities for nature play and enjoying the space. Okay, as we come towards the central a bit more, very much taking opportunity of the space we've created on this side to create flexible dining spaces or outdoor meeting spaces. People could come here and work on do things like that, or study and just enjoy this outdoor environment. We've softened the space up. We don't want hard paving everywhere. We want to make sure it feels green and enjoyable, and I'll show you some photos of that in a second. So I think that's it for the plan, unless Nick or Brett wants me to add anything else before I move on.
No, Walter, I'm good, mate. You can keep going from me.
Excellent. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the presentation and we can get into the fun exercises. So we'll move on to the next slides, which are just a few images of other projects that give you a bit of a feel for what you might experience here in the mall. Sorry, the first one there, you can see we were just wanting to use soft planting and timber. You can see the materials there are a little bit more rustic, but we still want that sense of strong craftsmanship and that sense of the well-built detailing of elements while feeling warm and welcome. Here you saw that image previously, and this happens to be from our Men's Street project, but it's a great way of showing a few things at once there in terms of canopy, creating shade, the paved environment. So vehicles that move through this come across this paved environment and negotiate that and deal with pedestrians, but also these different stories. So here it's showing the emus in one image, but also the Duchess, which is one of the old steamers, paddle steamers, also in a piece of interpretive public art. So it's really about how we weave those layers into the design. And so on top of the big moves, creating that framework for the landscape and for the uses, it's these extra layers that will be really important. Here, as I mentioned, that sense of the Bibbulmun track, where we want to introduce elements that really feel of nature. And we're looking forward to working with artists that can use those natural elements and create really special sort of experiences for people. So that gives you a feel of that that type of experience. Trying to translate that to a more urban experience here. So as an example project from over East that was recently finished, here you can see there's that roadway off to the right there. And there's no differentiation there between the vehicle space and the pedestrian space, because it's all one. But at the same time, you can see where you feel comfortable and where you might want to hang out and utilize space and stay longer. So you know, you get that flexibility of just crossing where you want, feeling comfortable walking through there, getting all those benefits, the good benefits of a pedestrian mall. But at the same time, we're opening up the mall, and you know, there's a lot of malls that have not succeeded. And I think it's a few factors, but one of them is about exposure, and it starts becoming out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people unless you have a real reason to be there. And so the occasional vehicle movement through there and people kind of reconnecting with that space really helps that sense of exposure, and then being part of people's mind maps, and then going, oh yeah, I think I want to go check that out and be there, and I don't need to be a driver there next time. I can just park somewhere, and plenty of parking around this mall area and in all the surrounding areas to then come in and use it. But you get that benefit of both, and you can see that comfort that comes from introducing greater canopy and those spaces for different uses. Just touching on materiality a bit, that combination of green and built things. So we obviously need to still accommodate hard pavements and all those sorts of things. We're looking at utilising natural products as much as possible. So in this sense, we're going with clay brick. It really kind of touches on the heritage feel for Kalamunda, the warmth that comes from fired clay, but you know, having a refinement in that design as well, and the terraces that are created through that, you can see in terms of those walls, flexible seating spaces, but once again, not having it too urban, not having too much built elements, having green there as well. And then from a different type of perspective, as I mentioned, those sort of, because the mall is on that slope, we do get to take advantage of that. We can terrace out areas and create those variable height areas that suit everyone. Then you get different height seating to suit different people. You can get that sense of elevation as you sit in a lifted up area and look down on low areas. And all these spaces, when you create those in the mall, is you give opportunities for different personality types. So those who like to sit back and feel enclosed and sheltered can find their little nook and feel comfortable. Those who love to show off and be the center of attention can be in the middle of it all. And we all know people watching is one of the greatest activities that brings more people. So this type of environment and the way we can shape the mall and the levels and the terraces help us to give those opportunities. Okay, so we're going to jump into some activities now. We've got about 3 or 4 activities. We're just going to play this by ear because there's not too many of you, and we'll just see how quickly you can do it. We're obviously very keen for you to participate in each of them, and we'll jump into it now. So the first one is just thinking a bit about what is the essence of Kalamunda, but also if you want to narrow that down and think about the Central Mall precinct, if you can have a think about that and give us 3 words that you think really captures that. So as those words get entered, you'll start seeing a bit of a word cloud, which is just a bunch of words coming together. And depending on if multiple people pick the same words or different words, we start seeing different things. So we start getting a sense of it. And I think, you know, these words are aspirational words as well. You know, we really want to see that future, what you imagine that future environment to be.
I can just see in the chat we've had John has put the words destination, community and engagement in there as well.
Great. So yeah, if you're having trouble with the Menti app, just utilize the chat and we can capture everything later. Nick, I think you're better placed to see whether we've got everyone or not, so I'll let you run that bit.
Yep, and just for anyone who's unsure, John, I've popped yours in for you. If you, on your phone or on your tablet, want to go to www.menti.com and then you put in a code, it'll ask you for a code, and the code is just on the top of the screen there. It's 38 16 59 1. And it will allow you, if you'd like to just share your thoughts on those particular questions in live time, so everyone else who's on the call can actually see those at the same time. We are, though, as we mentioned at the beginning, very, very happy on any of the questions to take any feedback. So if you'd prefer to verbalise and turn your mic on for a second, you're very, very welcome to do that and share your thoughts before we move to the next activity. And you can leave comments for us in the chat as well. So we really don't mind. It's more about giving you lots of options to make it easy to provide feedback during the online workshop. So I will just throw it to the floor quickly. Does anybody want to make any comments on this question? If not, we will move on to the next one. Okay, thanks, guys.
Some nice words there. So, you know, that idea of we're seeing combinations of things here like peaceful and vibrant. They can be quite different in how they're accommodated. So you can be both, and at different times of day. So I really like that. Beautiful is a lovely one, and just having people being part of it is great. Okay, so yeah, thanks, Nick, about the Menti reminder. That was meant to be my job and I failed. So hopefully you're all on there now where you've entered that code, and you should see on your screen your ability to answer these next questions. So you'll see on there your rating tool will have, you can just scroll that along, and you can pick from strongly disagree to strongly agree or somewhere in between. And these are those statements that I made right back at the beginning. So we'll do the first 6, and then after that we have the remaining 5, and we'll start seeing, so one person's entered at the moment, and then as more people enter, we'll get those averages in the black line with the circle number, but we actually see where the bulges are in terms of the different people entering it in different parts. So it's quite interactive. Seeing where those scores are being entered.
And again, if you're not using Menti either, you don't want to, or you aren't too sure, feel free to jump in the chat, let us know, or pop your hand up or turn your mic on, and just let us know what it is that's important to you in this regard. But thanks to everyone who's jumped on really quickly. You can see in live time there those scores changing as people actually enter in their thoughts. So at the moment, some of the very, very high ratings, 4.7 is almost, you know, very strongly agree in terms of those increased plantings and tree canopies to complement the character and identity of Kalamunda and to support existing community events. And that's certainly something we've been hearing from the community, but really quite strong scores across the board, because we've also got that opportunity for social gatherings in at 4.3, improved safety at 3.7, and being pedestrian focused while allowing vehicle access sitting kind of middle of the range there at 3.3. So thank you very much for that.
We've got the opportunity, Nick, given how small a group we've got, and if anyone does want to talk to this, if they want to turn their mic on. I do notice with the safety and the pedestrian bit, I can actually see some are at the high end and some are down at the low end. So I'd be keen to see if we want a bit of a conversation about that, to have those diverse views understood a little bit more, and that will help us as we refine our design. Does anyone want to talk to that?
Yeah, lovely. I'd really encourage that as well, Walter. Certainly we know from what we've seen in some of the social media and the like, people are a bit unsure about how pedestrians and vehicles might move together. That's some of the feedback that we had in the early stages of the project. So I would throw to our community members, if anyone wants to make any comment on that, we would really, it'd be really valuable for us.
Yeah, I've got William. Bill's got his hand up. Everyone's got their hand up, so we'll just go one by one. Andrew, I think you had your mic on first, so you go for it.
Sure. So my question really is, why do we need vehicle access? We haven't got vehicle access there at the moment. While I take on board what you're saying about how it can be done safely, is there actually a necessity to have that? I don't hear huge numbers of people calling out for it. So for me, all the other parts of this are really key, and improving safety, well, it's always good to be safer, etc. But I just don't see the need for vehicle access to that area.
Do you want to just add a bit there in terms of by not having vehicles there, what do you see the benefits would be?
At the moment, I think it's a good space for pedestrians, and I'm just not convinced. I'm not sure what the benefits that having vehicles adds to a space which is currently fully pedestrianised.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
that would obviously increase risk and that kind of thing, but will it actually give any benefits? And so for me, the better situation at the moment is to have pedestrian only and not to have vehicle access. So for me, it has to be a fairly strong reason to allow vehicle access in that area.
Great. I'm not going to answer that right now because I'm really keen to hear from the others as well. So I think, Bill, did you want to go next?
Basically the same question.
Yep.
As to what the philosophy behind having vehicles in there, what have we achieved? I can see some losses in this, that the space required for vehicles could be used for a variety of other things, displays, even trade displays and one thing and another, which would add interest to the space. Whereas a vehicle access way has to be kept open most of the time, except perhaps for markets and so on.
Yep, good point. Okay, did anyone else want to make a comment before we talk about that a bit more? No? Okay. So they're both quite valid comments and not uncommon throughout this process. So that is something that really the city is grasping with, and our team has been grasping with. If we go back a step in terms of the activity centre plan, so that's where the original recommendation came from, and that was adopted by council, and from that review of that plan and understanding from the city's perspective on how that process went, there was a lot of feedback around how to make that central mall area be more successful more often and to be a bit more active. So that combined with, I suppose, the challenges with access that needs to happen there currently does require a shift in thinking. So you could say, hey, let's create a mall all the way from Mead Street to Haynes Street. so that people do feel like they can access that space from those two streets. Because at the moment, they're both those space. The mall itself is actually kind of landlocked in the middle bit, and doesn't really have very good inviting or spaces that can actually be used to get to them. They're very, very narrow footpaths leading to the mall from the main shopping streets. And so those vehicle accesses do need to be maintained, because people need to get to the back of Nestor Bray Lane, and likewise, people need to get to parts of the Mead Street end. And so you've got that challenge of how to functionally deal with that, but make the mall a space where more people want to hang out and be at. And the current configuration, even if you did just a beautification of the mall section, fundamentally, I don't think it's actually going to get you the outcomes that you're after when you think of the broader context of the activity centre plan. And I think that's my take on why council endorsed it. But then through the challenge to us to explore what does that mean, and hence we ended up with the one way. So obviously two-way would be a lot more vehicle movement and more of that risk that you've mentioned, and that loss of opportunity because you need space for the vehicles. But that's why we've pared that down to a one-way with limited short-term parking, so that we do maximise those spaces for those things to still happen. So the trade display or the pop-up event or those sorts of things, there is actually quite a bit of room, and we feel that you can have the best of both of those worlds where you can accommodate that. The proof will be in the pudding. It's always the way in terms of that leap of faith. But we do look to those other benchmarks around the world and around Perth and say, well, what has and hasn't worked about those spaces? And we feel we've got that balance right, but we're obviously keen to hear the reasons behind your comments, and that's why I really want to understand what you were saying about. So if we address the risk, but we still make sure there's opportunity for those things, those other activities to occur, then hopefully we're getting that balance right.
Thanks, Walter. I just want to give community members the opportunity, just before we do move on, just to check if anyone has any final comments on that one they want to make, because it is a really interesting one, and it is one that's probably I'm seeing some of the most chat about, and it is a really interesting one, because I think you're right. It's currently many of us take for granted the fact that the mall is kind of one part, even though we think of it as the whole space, and that there is actually traffic access at the moment off Haynes Street heading into Nestor Bray and some parking there, along with parking and access at the top off Mead Street as well. So thank you very much for that. Are there any final comments from the community on that one before we move on? Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, so you'll see the same now again. You've got the 5 remaining aims for this project outcomes. If we can do the same exercise, we'd love to see your thoughts. Okay, we're starting to get some things coming in.
Well, this is interesting. There's some pretty consistently important views here. That's supporting local business activity coming out at the highest for this particular slide. I strongly agree. And I think everyone agrees that that is so imperative to what we're doing here in terms of any proposed enhancements for the town centre. So brilliant to see that there as as significantly important to our community attendees as well.
Yeah, I mean, with business, it's a doubling effect. So if the businesses become more vibrant and viable and interesting, more people are going to come to those, which has that flip-flop effect of bringing more people into that area as well. So that's good. Does anyone else want to make any comments or thoughts on that as well? All good? Okay, we'll move to the next exercise. Okay, so now we just want to know, okay, that's what we proposed as the aims or outcomes for the project. Is there something else that we've missed there, something specific that you feel, hey, you really need to tick this box? Now, that's not about, I want to see a dog drinking fountain there. This is about, actual outcomes from a broader perspective that you feel, we need to make sure that we tick that box, that our design and the project actually addresses that aspect. Rob's got his hand up there. Rob, do you want to make a comment?
Hi, Walter. My name is Rob Dewar. I'm the operations manager for Kalamunda Central Shopping Centre. I was just having a look at the plans previously on the southern car park.
Yes.
Is anyone sort of made any comments about making it a one-way car park?
When you say one way, do you mean that the only way the cars can get to it is from Haynes Street? Is that how you're describing it?
No, you can come in from Haynes on the lower side and then go around and clockwise.
Yep.
Around the car park and out, and also coming from the Central Avenue side, instead of going through to go to your left and around. So having that central area where there is a road there now to be perhaps made into more seating area for people.
Okay. I'll just park that for a sec, Rob. We'll finish this exercise and then I might bring up that plan again to just talk that through a bit more. Is that okay?
Okay, great. Thanks,
Sounds
Walter.
good. Okay.
Awesome. Did we have anyone else? Oh, yep. Look at that. Really important. So I think that idea of timing, avoiding Christmas disruption, and I know we're still in design, but lots of community members and business owners are talking to me about that, Walter, and just wanting to make sure that we, when we get to that next phase, that we work through those things. So Brett, I don't know if you want to make a comment on that, because I know that's something your team are very passionate about as well.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful input this morning. In terms of timing, Walter's team are at sort of the end of concept design, and we're now moving into the detailed design phase, which is going to come on the back of this community consultation. That should take us pretty much and get the documentation ready to go to tender in December this year. Allowing for obviously the Christmas shutdown by the construction industry, we think we'll be getting tenders back probably the end of January. And then it's probably a couple of month process to really ensure we've picked the right construction company and get council to award the construction contract. So at this point in time, it's almost certain it won't be construction at Christmas this year. I can guarantee that. We're just toying with and discussing with our relevant shop owners and business operators regarding through Easter or after Easter, whether it would, when the timing of works to start on site, with the view that it should be no more than a 6-month construction project. So in terms of timing, 2021, it should be done and dusted. And that's what we've got. We've got council approval and council funding for both the design and construction phases. I want to emphasise this is a real thing. This is happening. Thanks all.
I'll just add to what Brett said about that as well. We're going to be working closely to understand the best way the project can be staged through that construction period, so that access is maintained in the right places to the right businesses. They can keep operating as best as possible. The markets are obviously going to be a challenge in terms of at some point there will need to be a partial or full relocation, but that all those conversations are happening now, and ensuring we understand how we coordinate that as best as possible. But
Sorry,
certainly
Walter,
keen.
I just want to confirm something just on that. So just for clarity, any relocation would only be temporary, and wouldn't be in perpetuity per se. It would just be whilst works was undertaken. So we're working really closely with those parties that run markets within the town centre.
Beautiful. Okay, shall we move on to the next one? So we're getting this is a bit more open-ended, I think, isn't it, Nick, in terms of if you do want to take the time to fill this out now and share that with this group, you can always go back and do this another time as well through the regular survey process. But if you do want to take the time now for a few minutes just to think about what are the key things that really stand out to you that you like, and then there'll be another follow-up question about any areas of improvement. We need the thinking music here, Nick, the nice little...
We sure do. So I can see we've got a couple up so far. Spaces are engaging and include features such as art, local businesses, cafe spaces, and a sense of community. And we've got another one there in regards to the opportunity to finally revitalise the town centre. And certainly I know that many community members have spoken to the city over a number of years in relation to some of those streets and how they kind of aesthetically represent at the moment. Better use of the space. The Mead Street interchange is excellent, more planting flow and a unified plan for a food and beverage hub. So we'll give people a couple more minutes because I know the open-ended ones, sometimes we get some really nice theses in these questions. So we'll give people a bit of a chance. And of course, again, if you'd prefer to make comment, please just pop your hand up because we'd love to hear from you. Alrighty, if everyone's happy, we'll move on to the next slide. But if you're not happy and you're still typing away into Menti, just raise your hand or let me know.
So keen to hear how we can make things better. Any thoughts you might have, even if you can't solve it, give us a challenge and we'll see what we can do. Think about your experiences there. What really needs to be addressed when you go there, and if the plan's not quite doing that, what do you think that needs to be?
Maybe you guys did too good a job.
Well, you did say the Kalamunda folk are very kind and polite, so you're making us feel good. We do obviously have to go back to those other questions. Andrew has one as well, so we could jump to that now. I'm just trying to, I think after this, do we just go to the general questions about the session? Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
But we do then have any other questions straight after that.
Yep.
So that might be a nice way to finish it out. And then you can kind of share your screen and just talk specifically around that kind of current car park as well.
Yep. Okay. So we'll finish the Menti activities and then do that.
Okay, we've got one. So we'd like to see some more focus on water-sensitive urban design. We are a water-poor area, but the plan doesn't show anything related to this topic. I don't see any information on update of public facilities. So, for example, toilets, more info on art spaces. Is it traditional? And then there's the question AV, which I'm assuming is meaning might we have some kind of audio-visual elements, but if I'm incorrect and you made that comment, feel free to let me know. And Walter, I don't know if you want to make any comment on that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Clarify that. That was my question. I just ran out of space in Menti, but yeah, I just wanted to know what kind of art spaces is it going to be? Is it traditional, or is it going to be installation art with audiovisual? So just thought I'd clarify. Thanks.
Awesome, no, thanks, Andrew. And I'm glad I was kind of close, right? Like that's good.
Yes, so the brief's being developed at the moment. It is early days. Brett might talk to the there's a public art committee that deals with public art in a more general sense for the City of Kalamunda, and they're being involved as well. We certainly see a range of art from really small scale, low key, it could even be community art based, combined with integration of art in the elements that we're showing. So whether that's the canopies, the walls or the paving, furniture, those sorts of things, rather than a traditional standalone piece or sculpture that, you know, can be a make or break, is often subjective. The AV is something we've definitely done in other projects. We're very mindful of our budget and best spend for Kalamunda and tax ratepayers' money. So a full-scale, full-blown type of treatment can get, you know, into the hundreds of thousands, and possibly won't be looking at this stage, but we certainly are looking at lighting effects that sort of play on that a bit. But I think we're still open to these briefs being developed, and I'm sure Brett is going to tell us a bit more now.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, folks, again. Yes, as you would be aware, or you may not be aware, the city is developing its draft master plan for public art, and as part of that master plan, it's tried to identify key areas in the City of Kalamunda that could do with some really vibrant and public art, and Central Mall was one of the target areas they identified in the draft master plan. And the public art master plan committee said, wouldn't it be good if we had, you know, catenary lighting, and wouldn't it be great if we had canopies, and wouldn't it be great if we had natural furniture, and then ground plane speaking about the animals. And certainly enough, Place Labs, just in doing their response to the design, have picked up all those elements apart from the small public art pieces. So we think we're getting there in that regard. I will reinforce, however, that the budget is very limited for large-scale art spaces and the AV things, as Walter and other Andrews talked about. I'm keen to see, coming from this community feedback and the Public Art Advisory Committee, they'll provide feedback to the council about could we do more if we had more, and that'll be another stage to go through at the next round of council discussions on this project. So I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes, if I can help you in that regard.
Thanks very much for that, Brett. I certainly think it sounds like there's still some room to move there and some really exciting developments to come on board. We did, Walter, have another comment up on the screen that says, do the Haynes Street upgrade at the same time. More shade from verandas, a performance busking spot, plan to deal with the building at the Mead Street entrance. So I will just comment quickly in relation to the former Mead Medical Building, and that's just to say that we've had some really fantastic meetings with some of the representatives from that site. So I think we'll need to see where the private sector takes that one, but it's a watch this space kind of comment. Brett, I might throw the commentary around Haynes Street over to you, because I understand that would be subject to a further budget discussion with council.
Yep. Thanks, Nick. Just for the information of everyone, the Central Mall project's in the order of $2.4 million. Haynes Street was of a similar number. When council determined the budget for this current financial year, they just could not carry the burden of both projects concurrently. I'm sure when council come to set the budget for the next financial year, Haynes Street will be on the agenda for discussion with the councillors as to their appetite to proceed with it. Mindful, folks, that by and large, the funding for these works come from ratepayers. So we have to be sensitive to the overall spend of our rates revenue. But in terms of timing, I'd rather, just from a constructability purpose, have one after the other, not two at the same time. It would be very, very challenging for all the public and the community and the business owners to have both activities live as construction sites at the same time.
I'll touch on that point about verandas and those comments. We're actually talking to the owner of the property next to the Mead Medical Building. The awnings there are quite sad, and they're very excited by this project and keen to look to improve their frontages onto the space, and we see that as an opportunity. So also, you might not be quite familiar with the boundaries of the actual road that makes Central Mall and Central Road and Nesta Brae. Those boundaries all are in from the edges of those buildings. So a lot of what you actually see is on private land. And we're working with those owners to ensure we get a building to building outcome, so that really everything feels integrated, and getting those businesses on board. And likewise, talking to Knight Frank, who managing the shopping centre, they're very keen to see how they can contribute to that as well, and review the facades of the buildings facing onto the mall. So all that can work a lot better together. It's everyone's in this together to get those outcomes, rather than you kind of just say, this is my turf and that's all I'm going to do, sort of thing. So we'll definitely be addressing that. And performance busking spot, definitely we see that central area has been really good at offering those opportunities. And as we develop the plans, we get a better sense of what that is, because we, the level issues there are, we'll use those to our advantage to help with all that. Okay, I think you've had a lot of time now to enter anything, so we might get to the last bit. No questions from the audience.
So, Walter, this is a chance, and I know there's a couple that you kind of paused, so whether we want to deal with those at the moment, if you want to share your screen.
I think we should. Yeah. I think finish out all that. Yeah.
Just while I've got community, before you share screen and do that, guys, if you have any questions that perhaps you don't want to verbalize, you can just pop them up on the screen for us. And for those of you who have already asked questions, Walter will run those through. But if you've got your phones or your tablets, however you've been providing feedback, even once Walter brings his screen up, you can choose just to throw a question there, and we'll have a copy of it. So Walter, I'll get you to run through the questions that we parked for the moment.
Sure. Okay. So we'll go back to this plan, but perhaps even by zooming in on this one, kind of talk, Rob, about what you were saying here. So if you're happy to get your mic off and just talk to this a bit again.
Yeah, for sure, Walter. The black lines coming out from a central mall area.
Yep.
They go. One goes right through the middle.
Yep.
And goes out into Haynes Street.
Into Mead Street.
Into Haynes Street.
No, Mead at this end.
Mead Street.
No worries.
And the other arrow, black arrow, comes out from Central Mall to the left and around the car park. Yep, that's it. I'm just wondering, can we remove that arrow that goes through the centre of the car park or that road and just make it go around there, and the pink arrow coming down?
So delete. 1 second. Get rid of that bit of carriageway.
Yeah.
And take advantage of some sort of means. Now, whether that means a tweaked version of the parking to make that work, to free up this space even more to improve it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been out at Kalamunda Central now for 18 months, and I've just noticed that the traffic mainly goes in that clockwise direction.
Through here?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we just I can't do different colors, but so yeah, we did this is not specifically addressing your point, but we did actually explore a south to north direction for the one-way area, and we also explored not allowing access from Mead into here and forcing everyone to come from Haynes. But what we felt that did, and that comes back to that risk thing, is anyone who needed to get to here, including service vehicles, would have to travel the entire length of Central Mall, and so that's why we still ended up with a two-way. But what you're describing here is something is a different permutation of that, which is quite interesting. There's the only fundamental challenge with this is that we're now taking public vehicles through private property, and what I mean by that, and I'll change back to let's go. All the colours change, which is really annoying. But there's a line here. That line here, is the property boundary. To the shopping centre development. And so this conversation would require the city and the shopping centre owners and managers to discuss what implication that has in considering this activity. Now, public car parks are public environments for the sake of, road traffic and rules and all those sorts of things, but there's definitely some long-term things that need to be considered there. For example, the developers decide to totally change this entire area and they build out this zone. So maybe this is something that Brett can take offline with you and have a bit more of a chat.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if any of the other participants have any comments about this suggestion.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I think it's some interesting debate there. I also thought that Andrew had some questions as well, if there aren't any further comments on that one. Is he next on your list, Walter?
Yeah, I don't know if that was the question you've already asked us, Andrew, or if you got another. Oops, if you got another one.
Yeah, I just really wanted to know more about the water-sensitive urban design and what you're doing there in terms of things like drainage, in particular, how you're handling drainage and improving drainage in that area where it's not particularly water-sensitive urban design. Are you looking at things like pit and pipe, or are you looking at things like tree pits, bioretention, and vegetated swales?
Great question. Okay, so we're removing, obviously in the road and car park environments, by doing the flush treatment, we are removing the drainage system. In the mall itself, at the moment, there's a series of channeled areas and grated areas that just all go into a piped network. Our understanding, and we're still getting some geotechnical surveys done, which will tell us a bit more about the ground conditions. But if you look traditionally, this sort of environment, the drainage qualities of the soils up here aren't fantastic, unless you get a fair bit of space for creating infiltration. So there's a bit of a challenge there in terms of the sort of bioretention, swales and rain gardens that capture stormwater, and it sits there for a while, gets treated by the plants, and then infiltrates in situ back into the ground. At this point in time, pending the outcomes of the geotechnical information, we certainly are exploring the passive irrigation of the planting beds. So we're introducing more soft surfaces than exist there currently, which obviously increases infiltration, and we're directing water to those planting beds so that that you get that benefit. But we're just not sure at this point whether or not there can be much detention functionality, and so we have allowed for a series of have cross falls in the paved areas to go to a series of grated pits that will connect to the existing stormwater system. So we're trying to improve things where we can, but we're still ultimately relying on the existing stormwater design. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, more or less. But so there will be some improvements, but it's not. You're not sure quite how many just yet.
Yeah, how much of a step change it can be. There's also a bit of a challenge with the grades here. Where it's at its steepest, there's real risk of scouring, and it's really hard to actually create detention when you don't have a lot of space to get the levels to fall down, without creating steps or fall hazards and things like that. So it is a bit tricky on sloped, more steeper sloping environments. Whereas if this was a more gentle environment, we'd have a lot more opportunity.
Walter?
Yeah.
I'm just going to flick to Brett. Hopefully he's also going to talk about the fantastic storm pollutant trap. I'm sure he might, but I'll flick over to him, and we might just get some further comment for Andrew, just in regards to some of the work the city's done around the town centre overall today.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Walter. Thanks, Andrew. You may not be aware, but basically the town centre, the Haynes, Barber, Mead, Central drainage system eventually ends up in Stirk Park as part of the master drainage system for the city. So we've just installed a gross pollutant trap in Stirk Park, which allows us to really get a lot of the nasties out of the water stream before it then continues to discharge into the overland drainage network. Moreover, the objectives you're sort of describing it, making it more water sensitive urban design, Stirk Park's going through an improvement plan itself, and we're using the water bodies and the natural surface expression there to do some improvements in terms of nutrient trapping and those sorts of things. So we're trying to overall improve, on a holistic sense, the drainage outcomes. I know it's not quite in Central Mall, but when we get the water, we can deal with it a bit better.
Okay. And are you liaising with organisations like the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation as part of that?
Most certainly, they were very excited when they saw the gross pollutant trap go in. If anyone wants to go down to Stirk Park, it's just near Kalamunda Road, Canning Road. Sorry, it's actually visible. The community can see what goes into the stormwater system. It's more of it's a lot of an community education tool as well.
Cool, thank you. And because if I'm not mistaken, that's also part of the groundwater feeding the Canning Dam, isn't it? It's the Canning Dam, or one of the one of the reservoirs for drinking water.
No, that's incorrect. It actually drains to the river eventually.
The Poison Gully, my understanding, Andrew, is that that particular one becomes part of Poison Gully, as I'm aware.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
That's correct, Nicole. It joins Poison Gully, which goes through the airport eventually, then discharges into Swan.
Great, thank you very much.
some of our catchments, Andrew, just for reference, that are closer, like so your Kadina Brooks and some of those more into Gooseberry Hill, will go in towards Helena Reservoir, which may have been what you were thinking of. But feel free offline if you want any more information on that. We'd happily provide that for you.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I just ask, I think John's got his hand up, so can we go to John, who also has a question?
Thanks. Thanks, Nick. I've got a couple of questions, actually, if that's okay. When I have a look at similar sort of hubs around the Perth metropolitan area, and I'm thinking Watley Crescent, Albany Highway, Vic Park, Oxford Street, Leederville, areas that I know quite well and have seen develop over the years. They're vibrant hubs, food and beverage hubs, and they all have medium and high density housing as a common factor that's driving population. And the businesses won't, the businesses are obviously there because the population is there. I'm just wondering what research the city has done in terms of what the sort of forecasts are over the next for younger family integration into the area. There's very much a feeling that Kalamunda is a bit of a retirement village, but there are others in the community who feel that that's changing a little bit, and we need to encourage younger families to come in. So I love the project, and I think it's it's a fantastic spend. But unless the right businesses turn up, it's not going to work. And the businesses are only going to turn up if the demand is there. And we've already got a situation where a lot of the cafes don't even open 7 days a week. They're opening 4 and 5 days. They don't open at the weekends because the demand just isn't there. So do you want me to carry on with the next questions or answer that one?
Look, I'm happy just to make a quick comment, and team, if anyone else wants to jump in, please feel free. The city does have a community profiling tool, and the one thing that I would flag there based on the last lot of census data is that whilst the City of Kalamunda may be very well known and certainly well loved by many senior members of the community and retirees, for example, we also showed considerable growth in families with children. So in comparison to the 5 years prior, there was considerable growth in that area. And that is also reflected when you look to the number of both primary schools and high schools in the district and their current numbers coming through those particular schools. Many of them have had to expand, add demountables, and that type of thing in direct response to the fact that there are many, many families that are also coming and choosing to build their lives here in the city of Kalamunda. So I'm not sure if anyone else wants to make comment or if that kind of assists a little bit, John, but feel free to add any commentary as you move forward with your additional questions.
Thanks. Well, I think the having a destination where families are going to want to come to Kalamunda for a reason is what we need. I think the skate park in Stirk will be a major benefit. I'd like to see some more playground equipment, I suppose, down towards the rotunda that allows people to, the sort of smaller kids, families to congregate down there. My second point is about, not so much a question, about an observation, but the communications still not getting through to the businesses in the mall. I talk regularly to the business owners there, and there's a new business, the Micro Collective, fantastic new shop that's gone in there. I spoke to them on the evening of the night markets, and they had heard about this redevelopment, but didn't know much about it, didn't know when it was starting, didn't know what it meant. So no matter how much the city seems to be pumping out the information, it's just not getting through. And I wonder whether we can put a sort of semi-permanent display maybe in the middle of the mall, which everybody can look at and see what it means.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, John. So just to confirm, there's a couple of comments I would make in relation to that one. We're just in conversations with Erin Leonard from the shopping centre about having a display for the rest of the project time in the shopping centre itself. So that's great. We have worked quite a lot with businesses within the Central Mall area, and we'll certainly take on board and see what else we can get into the mall itself. But I must say the other part of this is that the reference group is now operating. I think they've only had their first meeting. There might be a second one. Brett will be able to kind of confirm that. But there's a number of business owners who are really strongly kind of advocating and getting everyone on board. So I think we will start to see more knowledge of that. Of course, when a new business comes on board, they need some extra special care and attention because they don't always know the background. So we'll reach out to the Micro Collective and see if they'd like a one-on-one. I'm aware of at least one other business that has also recently changed hands or is in the process of changing hands in Central Mall, and they have reached out and had one-on-one meetings and discussions with some of the team here at the city to get an understanding of where it's going. So please spread the word that we're always willing to do that should there be the need or the changeover and the like. But I think like any project, it'll take a little bit of time and people are really busy. So it's about them being able to absorb the information at a time that it suits them.
Yeah. So my last question really for Walter. With the market, the Chamber of Commerce runs the farmers market and the night markets. And with the night markets in particular, there are some fairly large food trucks that access not only the mall, but also the area behind CADS and down towards the rotunda. So at the moment, we bring those in from Mead Street and also up from Haynes Street, up Nesterbray into the mall, and then right alongside CADS to the right of the horse, round the back of CADS and then down onto the grassy area. Just to make sure that you're aware of that and that none of this development would preclude that vehicular transit through that area.
I might chip in here on that one. Thanks, John. As you know, the Chamber has asked Kevin Bennett to represent the Chamber and the markets on their reference group. So these are the sorts of issues that Kevin and the team will be working through as the design progresses, and then we get into the construction planning. if that helps assuage you that we will be taking all the needs on board.
Yep.
Yeah, and so just to understand that a bit more, you're saying that the food trucks end up sort of in here in a few spots.
Behind CADs, see
Yeah.
where you've got 7, that's the front.
Oh, up on the top here.
So it's around the other side towards the rotunda on the grassy area.
Yeah,
So,
around through here.
Yeah.
I can't see where you're.
Oh, can you see my hand moving?
So the hand is kind of over near where the wooden horse is.
That's where the wooden
at
horse
the
is here.
Yeah.
So it goes through there and all the way down to Barber Street.
Yeah. But they get access through this point in here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we've worked with, and we'll continue in the finalising the design with our civil engineers Taybeck, is making sure that vehicle movements come in and through and all work smoothly in this area. And so ensuring that these terraces and things like that don't get in the way of that.
Yep.
But also that in here we provide opportunity for them to park up in here as well. And we'll keep working with the market organisers to do that. We did a very simple preliminary exploration of the markets in terms of impact. By example, this one here, which looks at where all the stalls could potentially still go, and showed that there'd be potential for net increase in stalls just in the central mall section. That excludes the ones that would be assumed to be happening in Barber. So yeah, no, it's good to know it, and we'll definitely keep talking to those guys.
It would be worth you attending the night market.
Yeah, sure. We've been to the day one. We haven't been to the night one.
Yeah, the night one is a very, very different feel, very different atmosphere, and a different footprint.
And John, it's let's all have a bit of a conversation offline specific to that, because I've got another question from Bill as well, but it's kind of worth noting and us getting a feel for what your long-term plans are, because obviously traditionally the night market was more Haynes Street focused, but I know your last one was kind of a mini market and only in Central. So there'll be an opportunity for us to ensure that the night markets are well catered for within the new potential space. But I might jump to Bill and then I'll come back if you've got another question, if that's okay, John.
Yep, no problems, thanks.
Thank you very much. Bill, you've had your hand up and you've been so amazingly patient. We would love to hear your question.
Okay, I just want to endorse the things that John said about access for vehicles. I've been associated with the Saturday market for 20 years, run by Rotary Kalamunda, and we have similar problems with access and so on, and I believe that's being addressed anyway, or should be part of the detailed planning. The only other thing I'd like to raise is the provision of services in the form of power and water spread throughout the whole area for use by the market holders. The present arrangements are very ordinary and inadequate. And if it's possible to have, for instance, power outlets, perhaps card operated, so they pay as you go, and some water points, vandal proof, etc., spread around the markets which could be used, that would be a major contribution. I believe the markets have been the primary reason that the mall has survived even as much as it has, because the businesses in there have been given promotion, and in fact the only time I've seen them making their money is on when there are markets on. So they are very important. I think that's been acknowledged anyway for the continuation.
Thank you for sharing, Bill. And I just do want to reiterate that certainly the city acknowledges the significant benefit of the markets. The Saturday Village Market has ran for many, many, many years, as you mentioned, the farmers market since 2009. and we certainly acknowledge that. I will also just note, because I think it's a conversation for that more detailed design, and the Rotary Club has a representative on the reference group as well. We're certainly aware of the group's evolving requirements in relation to power over time. So as stalls have grown and numbers have grown as well over a few interim measures to try and assist and provide more power, and also ensure that the load was adequate, as I'm sure you'll be aware, including the upgrade to the power available at CADS and via CADS. But it's something we'd love to see further enhanced, should it be able to be part of the current scope. I don't know, Brett, if you want to make any more comment, or if that's okay for that one at this point.
Thanks, Nick. What we have at the moment, yeah, as I referenced earlier, the Place Lab team have got us to concept. We have a concept level cost plan. The next iteration would be and that at this point in time does include improvements to the power supply in Central Mall for the markets. What we will be exploring as we get through the detailed design is further firming up costs so that we still can retain and maintain our budget that's available. So I can't answer that definitively whether or not it's going to be the end product, but that was certainly our objective.
Thank you very much. Well, did you have another question? Because I just note your hand is still up.
Yeah, I just perhaps make the comment along similar lines that the mall at the moment is isolated from Main Street, except when the markets are operating, and then the whole lot connects together. I'm talking about the Saturday market now.
Yep.
But all the other time, the mall is totally isolated by the lower end of Central Road, which is really just used as a staff car park by the workers around that area. But it is, I think, very important that connection, visual connection, is taken down to Haynes Street, and that there is a substantial entrance statement there which can attract people to move into the mall. It's something that doesn't exist. It's desperately needed. The little illustration we saw earlier on in this presentation showed a few flags up, and perhaps I'm doing it a great injustice, but it looked a bit like the entrance to a service station. If we could develop something a bit more substantial at the Haynes Street end, I think it would be a good contribution. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thanks also for the really positive feedback. I'll just check, John, did you still have one more question, or are you good? We're almost out of time, and we do just want to kind of wrap up a few final things for you to all be aware of. So I'm happy to take one more question if you've got one.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for those who did rate their satisfaction with our online workshop. If you're happy on Menti, it's just important for us to know and to see where we can improve. You get to rate Walter now and me. So please let us know, totally anonymous, of course, how you feel that we've done today, if you're happy to. And just a reminder as well that the project is still open, and it's fantastic to have you on here today and to be asking questions and getting more information. We really encourage you to put a survey in if you haven't already, to encourage your friends, your family, your neighbours, the person next door, the lady that you go to Canasta with, everyone to jump on and have their say, mums, dads, grandkids. We want to hear everybody's thoughts, because this is a really significant project for the Kalamunda Town Centre, and it'll be some of the highest amount of investment that the council has associated to the town centre in a number of years. So we'd really love to see community on board and make sure that the design meets all of your needs. If there's anyone still rating, do you want to just pop your hand up? Otherwise, I'm quickly going to move to the next slide, because I'm just conscious we let you guys know that this would finish at 12 o'clock and that your time's also very important to us. Awesome. Just a chance now, and I think we've probably dealt with this as we've moved along, but for you to let us know if you've got any other comments, anything you'd like to share, any final thoughts before we finish up, and you can please just pop your hand up if you do. Okay, brilliant. Well, I just wanted to thank Walter from PlaceLab and also our director, Mr. Brett Jackson, for joining us and taking the time today to run through where the design is at the moment. Don't forget, you can jump online, engage.kalamunda.wa.gov.au and check out the Central Mall project. There's some other pretty amazing projects out for comment as well at the moment, including our strategic community plan. So please do jump on and have your say on any one of those and spread the word for us.
Thank you, everyone. And you're all now engagement experts, because when this goes online, everyone will get to see how you contributed. And I'd encourage you to actually get people to spend the time to go through this session if they want to understand a bit more, and take the time afterwards to respond. Thank you.